This is Served with me, Andy Roddick. Please hit subscribe. We drop new episodes every week. This clip's brought to you by ServiceNow. AI is only as powerful as the platform it's built on. With the ServiceNow AI platform, your AI, data, and workflows all work together, connecting every corner of your business. To see how you can put AI to work for people, visit servicenow.com/AI-agents. He is out for Rome. He is out for Roland Garros, with something that doesn't often happen, where you play a match in Monte Carlo, then you play one match in Barcelona, you finish, you win. That doesn't exactly lead you down. When you pull out of an event like a Barcelona, when you're Alcaraz, it screams maintenance at first. So I was pretty surprised that, even after the cast and everything, that he has to basically essentially ride off the next month of the year. It's just not good. It's just, he's electric, and we like the Alcaraz and Sinner of things, and creates a bit of an attention vacuum, bit of a tennis vacuum, and it's never great to lose your defending champion at Roland Garros, especially in Rome, for that matter, especially after the final last year. JW.
Yeah, it's hard to spin this positively. I guess one thing we could say, it does look like this is not a tear. And you hear wrist in tennis, and immediately, where does your mind go? To some really dark places. Juan Martín del Potro, Dominic Thiem, never the same player. On the other hand, no pun intended. I was thinking 10 years ago, Novak's trying to win Roland Garros for the first time, and what happens? Is he going to beat Rafa? And then Rafa has a wrist injury, and we all say, "Oh yeah." Rafa misses Wimbledon, and then by August, he's winning gold medals in doubles and is playing the U.S. Open. So we hope that's what this is. You don't mess around in tennis with wrists. In a way, I think it's impressive that, it's rare to see someone pull out of an event 4 weeks out, especially as the two-time defending champion. But with any luck, we'll see. It doesn't look like he's going to undergo surgery. I was trying to make some calls, and the camp has been understandably buttoned up, but it does seem like he's going to be trying to come back in time for Wimbledon. So that's the good news. With opportunities, whether this is Jannik Sinner winning the career slam, which would, two straight majors with a career slam would be interesting. There's a 39-year-old Serbian player who, only player who did better than him in the previous major was Alcaraz. Maybe what do you always say? It's going to be tough for him to go through two of these guys. Well, now he only has to go through one. Alexander Zverev was probably going to get that spot at the second seed. It creates opportunities, but yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's unfortunate chiefly for Carlos Alcaraz, but also objectively, it's not great for a tournament when the two-time defending champion a month out pulls out. And we just hope this is, again, the Nadal 2016 wrist injury and not some of the more dire wrist injuries that we've seen with other players.
Well, listen, I don't know that I will ever question a player who takes the long view on an injury, especially I know Carlos is 7 majors in, right? And he's walking through the shadows of greats pretty much month to month right now. But with the players that you named, JW, and I'm glad you shouted them out, Juan Martín del Potro, I'm thankful. It seems like this week he's getting a ton of love from, I heard on different podcasts, Jim Courier was talking about him, and I'm happy that people realize the enormous potential that he had and how good he was, not even just potential, because a lot of it was realized. And then Dominic Thiem, right? If you're Carlos, I'm hoping that sets in. It's disappointing for us as fans, but in the macro view, it's like, why on earth would you risk anything if you're Carlos Alcaraz? One major versus pushing something. We don't know what it is yet. I know for a fact you can't play through a Monte Carlo final and then a Barcelona first round, was it 2 or 3 days later? If you have tears or tendons or, whatever it is, it's not something that you can grin and bear it. So I'm hoping this is precautionary. Based on the information that we have so far, which is not a lot, past his Instagram post, which I might have you just read at the end of this, it doesn't seem extreme. Like JW said, we hope that's not the case. We hope the case is that it's not an extreme injury. I guess better safe than sorry when you have someone who's as young, explosive, and kind of the only concern between him and, continuing his march through tennis history is health, right? So I guess you protect that at all costs if you're in the Alcaraz camp.
I went down the rabbit hole a little bit. Who's had wrist injuries? And you don't really, Novak Djokovic had a wrist injury. Roger Federer, and I think it was 2018, had a hand I mentioned Nadal. Serena Williams had her wrist wrapped. Again, you don't mess around with wrists. But did you ever have that? Do you ever have?
Yeah, I had my left wrist one time. Injury. I dove on a match point against Elanawi in a long match there, and I landed on my wrist. And so I played the semifinal there against Schüttler with basically a chip backhand. And I didn't really do much. It came back. It wasn't anything that cost me any amount of time, but I think I had to pull out of maybe one event, miss 3 or 4 weeks. But it certainly wasn't on the right wrist, and it wasn't because of, there's a difference between like if you land on a wrist and you bruise it versus like your stroke production is grinding your wrist in a certain way that you can't get away from, which is very different. Mine was, I landed, there was an injury. It wasn't based on the way I was hitting the ball like a team or maybe a Juan Martín, where, you know, your body just couldn't take that extreme stroke production. So yes and no, had a wrist injury. It wasn't the same as the people trying to produce, you know, violent spin through, you know, in your wrist saying, you know, I can't actually physically do this. Do you want to read his post?
Yeah, on Friday, on the 24th, he had put out on Instagram, he said, after the results of the test carried out today, we have decided that the most prudent thing to do is to be cautious and not participate in Rome or Roland Garros as we wait to evaluate the progress so we can decide when to return to court. This is a difficult time for me, but I'm sure we will come out of it stronger. You know, obviously they're not going to rush this thing. Mm-hmm. Is there any concern about even Wimbledon at this point?
Of course, because we don't know anything.
Yeah.
If you're pulling out of tournaments 4 weeks in advance, yeah. I mean, you're definitely concerned. We don't know we're guessing. We're guessing based on context clues, right? If you finished a match in Barcelona, you know, I know you called the trainer during that. It feels like wear and tear as opposed to like, I say they like if you yank the strings on an electric guitar, right? That sort of pain, like you don't play through that. You don't play a Monte Carlo final. You don't play the next round in Barcelona. So we're hoping it's not like a major injury where you hit one ball and all of a sudden you pull up and you know something's wrong, like we've seen before. The context clues don't suggest that it's something that was ripped, torn in a major way. And we hope that's the case, you know, but like, fuck, what am I do podcasts. I'm not a doctor. So I think we wait and see. But yeah, I mean, if someone pretty young who, by the way, has not been scared to take tournaments off going into Roland Garros the past 2 years. He's either missed Madrid or Rome each of the last 2 years, 1 year with a forearm injury. And then a couple last year it was he got hurt in Barcelona again. So maybe don't play back-to-back weeks on clay anymore, right? You've gotten hurt in Barcelona while trying to tack it on to Monte Carlo the last couple of years. I know it's easier said than done, local pressures, and it's in your hometown and everything else. But curious if you kind of take a step back and you start scheduling maybe a little bit differently. Listen, the thing that struck me when players were asked about Carlos was this thing like Zverev kind of almost like epitomized it. They're like, okay, well, on the plus side, it's one less to go through if I want to win a Grand Slam. So that I'm not going to like sugarcoat it and say that my path isn't easier if he's not there, right? One of the two major, you know, beating one of them is different than two of them. And he's like, I fully am sad and understand the fact that when Carlos isn't there, it's a major hit to tennis, right? Two things can be true. And I thought he kind of threaded that needle pretty well with his response. But yeah, I mean, it opens it up for someone like a Zverev or, you know, this aged version of Novak, right? It maybe gives you a little bit of hope where, you know, going through one, you know, Novak's gone through one. He went through one, you know, in Australia, and he went through one last year in Australia. So, you know, if you're Novak, you're going, okay, well, maybe 25, and Zverev equally is going maybe 1.